Greetings to you and welcome to another episode of the GreenRoom. Today's guest is one of my business colleagues from one of the various businesses that I dabble in. I'm blessed to have her nickname because I know that I would butcher her name if I have to pronounce it. So I'm going to let her do that in the midst of her intro. So ma'am, could you introduce yourself to the viewing audience of the GreenRoom so that we'll have your name enunciated properly?
Hi guys, this is Kenajawa, Leshawn.
Okay, I call her Kiki basically because I have a real phobia of mispronouncing folks' name. It's just a bad thing, and I don't want to do it. It's very rude and tacky, and I just don't like it.
But it's not hard. 4 syllables.
Yeah.
Kenajawa.
I know that.
I used to make people practice with me, so you're lucky.
Yeah, well, I might end up doing that. I know you enough and work with you enough where I'm probably going to end up having to do that. But now you know why I always call you Kiki. That is why, and it's probably going to be like that until I go home and practice a little bit. But to recap, as always, the Green Room is an opportunity for a smaller business doing great work that many of you might not be familiar with yet to share itself with a much wider audience through about 5 or 6 questions and to give you an idea who the owner is. In a nutshell, the Green Room is ultimately an unscripted chat that I hope will give you an opportunity to glimpse into what that person is doing, who that person is, and maybe possibly seeing yourself in them as a fellow aspiring entrepreneur. So let's get into it, Kiki. So, who are you and what is your business?
Of course, like you guys said, my name is Kenajawa Leshawn. My business is DA Writing House. I am the owner and CEO of DA Writing House. I'm a published author here in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah. I'm running into a lot of authors lately, so I don't know if there's a heavenly reason for that anyway. But you are a Christian sister, so I can go ahead and freely evoke the name of the Lord in here. So that's what's up. I dig that. All right, so the question there's only 5 or 6 questions. So, however, we may deviate a little bit just to make sure that we get a little bit more of a fleshed out view of who you are to the listening audience. So, what is a story that led to your vision? And in a nutshell, what this is just giving as much as you're willing to share. What led to where you are in the business world? So much, but I think my story really started in the business world at the end of 2018. At the beginning of 2018, I kind of went through a really big trial in my walk with God, and I kind of fell off from my relationship with God due to sin. And just a little backstory, I've always been a writer, so I've probably been writing since about the age of 12. It started out with poetry. Then once I got into college, I really got into more technical styles of writing. I was the person to go to get all your papers written. So it happens for me naturally. Like, sometimes I read stuff after I write, I'm like, whoa, did I really write that? Like, I don't believe it sometimes myself. So writing has always been a passion of mine. So the end of 2018, I'm really just sitting and I'm going through one of my journals, and I was like, dang, I've really been through a lot of stuff. And then, I don't know if those that are listening are believers, but I believe I know I heard God say, my people need this. And if you guys know me, I'm going to be real. So the conversations I have with God is like a conversation I'm going to have with John, a normal person. So I was like, what?
Oh, the John's a normal person? Come on now.
Yeah, I was like, John, or just any normal person. I was like, what, God? And he was like, my people need this. And I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do with it? At the time, I had like a writing Instagram page. So I was like, oh, do you want me to post it on Instagram? Like, what do you want to do with this? And he was like, no, this is going to be your first book. And at the time, my first book, which came out later in 2019, it came out in May of 2019, was Every Tear Was a Silent Prayer. And I thought that would be my first book. But it ends up that Broken Pieces was my first book. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to take a stab at this whole writing world thing. I wasn't in school at the time anymore. I had some issues with UNF, so school was on hold for me, or it is on hold for me. Pray for me, y'all.
Right.
And then, so I was like, I'm going to take a stab at this whole writing world thing. So I just connected with some different people in the industries. A lot of people gave me some shots out the gate. Like I became an assistant editor for a magazine here in Jacksonville called Emerging Black Magazine. I also became I managed the email account for a group here in Jacksonville. So that was really my start in the business world. And then during that time, different people ran into me and they were like, why don't you have your own business yet? And at this time, I didn't even think of having my own business. I was just like, I love writing. I'll do whatever I can to get it done. So after a lot of probing and pushing, like I tell people a lot, I was forced into my business, which I'm grateful for because it wasn't my idea. I just had people around me pushing me to say, you have a talent and why not make it legitimate? So that's really where my business journey began.
Yeah, I feel cheated. All these writers I'm running into now, and all these old messed up college book reports that all these term papers and stuff, and I missed the opportunity to have somebody else do this. Now we actually have a business organization in common, which is partly the main reason that we actually know each other. So just for the benefit of the listening audience, and a shameless plug for Finally She. So let everybody know how we know each other.
So this is something else that blew my mind last year. I became the director of an entire department for a media network here in Jacksonville. Like John said, we share that business partnership in common. So I am the director of writing and print for FSTV, or Finally She Media Network. So if you guys need, you trying to get a movie out there, you got a book you need written, you need some management because you're a musician. I don't know what you need. We got it all. So just come check us out. But yeah, that was a really great accomplishment I made last year that I'm definitely so proud of. And thank you for Michelle for, seeing something in me and believing in me at the age of 24.
And me.
Yeah. So make me a director of an entire department. It's definitely scary. I definitely every day probably wake up and like, what is she doing? But when you put God first, things get done.
Well, we gonna secure the bag while she before she figure out what she doing. They keeping us on payroll. Well, I'm very self-serving. Both we believe in the win-win, but I'm still very self-serving. So in addition to having Kiki's contact information on the tagline of this podcast, we're also going to have the website address to Finally She, because that's actually what we have in common. But of course, first and foremost, in this particular season, it's all about you and your story. So, what's your biggest challenge, and how do you overcome it? Now, since we always talking about the person, and we're also trying to make sure that there's something in every conversation that I have with someone that resonates with other entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. This is always a big question. So what's your biggest challenge, and how do you overcome it?
I think I definitely can answer that, because it's a conversation me and God had already this year. You guys don't know me. I talk to God a lot. So you'll hear me say that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But someone asked me if I could use one word to describe my year, what would it be? And my word was belief. And I said that because last year, God told me a lot. God told me to do a lot. He showed me a lot of what he has for me in the future. And just like the woman of God that he has already established me to be, he was just kind of waiting on me to walk in that path. And I didn't believe it a lot. Last year, I published 3 books, and I can't say that a lot of it was because of my own work or will. I doubted myself a lot. I wanted to give up a lot. I wanted to quit a lot. So I had to ask myself, how much more would I have gotten done if I really did believe in myself and the things that God has shown me? So sometimes that's my biggest challenge, and just believing in myself and believing the God things that God says for me. So that's one of my major goals of 2020, to do everything, anything with no doubt. I kind of tackled fear last year because I would like hold myself, but I could have done more, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's the biggest challenge a lot of us face. Like, we're scared of what's after that next footstep, and it hinders us, and it has us in this stuck place a lot. So I think for me, that was the biggest challenge overcoming last year, and still working through this year, not being afraid, not being fearful, and just going for it.
All right. You know, interesting. I was just thinking of this while you were talking to me. You, first of all, you're working alongside. I'm working alongside some folks that are significantly younger than myself, which is interesting dynamic in and of itself. It's a good thing, but actually, it's a blessing because sometimes for me, and this is a transparency moment, sometimes for me, I don't always rock real well with some of my millennial entrepreneurs, not because I'm acting older than them or trying to teach them anything, but more often than not, I find I'm really looking at and really getting energized by the hustle and grind that's in them. And there'll be times where I'll be sitting back pulling things from them that my skill sets or my toolbox doesn't have. Yeah. And then I'm getting this energy like all of a sudden they're feeling threatened, when in reality, if anyone would have felt that way, it would have been me, because you're half my age and you halfway down the road doing your thing, and I'm picking your brain, and you're looking at me like all of a sudden I got some ulterior motive under the belt, or trying to hustle something. So it's very weird, but it's refreshing, because this dynamic working alongside yourself is allowing God to purge that stuff out my system. Yeah. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I was just like, man, I didn't even want to admit that was there. I knew it was, but I didn't want to say it because it sounded awful. But reality is, you ain't gonna get rid of nothing until you put it out there and be real with it. But that's what I was dealing with. It's like
I could definitely see that myself too. I know a lot of people, just in general, I don't think age has anything to do with it, but a lot of us feel entitled, like it's ours and we gotta have it. I was just in the car because I met with my business consultant yesterday, and she was just telling me about like the Jacksonville market, and telling me don't be discouraged if certain things I do don't launch the way I think it'll launch. And she was just saying it's just because of the market in Jacksonville and how our people are. And I was like, dang, that's crazy. If we all just operated like with the best interest of everybody in mind, our city would be the Atlanta, would be the Texas, would be the New York. We have that in Jacksonville. It's just, everybody's so selfish. And that's something in my character, I'm, trying not to be, like, just having the best interest in everything that I go into. Nothing's mine. God done gave me everything I had. So I can't, if you want to know something, come ask you, because God gave it to me. I can't. So that's always, I really had to learn how to actually hold back on giving out stuff, because even Michelle had that conversation with me. It was like, you be giving out a lot of free information. You need to start charging. It's worth your time, your money. Because before I was just like giving out, like, here you go. You all can have it all. They was like,
I think for those of us who are of the faith family, we have to balance our desire to give to others. Compels us to do that automatically, but we almost have to make an aggressive move to pull some things back, because you are still responsible for your own growth and development and livelihood, and you got to take care of yourself and your family as well. And that requires that I give you this much. If you want a little bit more, let's set up a consult. You always plug that in so that, let them know that, okay, I give you a little bit of something, but after that, you're going to have to set up a consult, because, yes, this is a business. And those of us who are giving, those of us who have a heart for people, It's difficult. It's very difficult to do that. However, it's necessary because otherwise this becomes volunteer work.
Yeah.
And volunteer work in a business, the big difference is you can still be passionate, but the big difference is volunteer work, you ain't getting no bread for that.
Right.
And you can't pay your bills off of kind feelings. It's just the reality of the world we live in. And I feel you on that because I understand that and I wrestle with that a lot. And it's a blessing that you actually seeing that much earlier than I have. So that's real stuff.
To the people that's around me.
Indeed. See, I should have had Michelle in here. She says that we're speaking of her quite a bit today.
Right.
All right. You may have alluded to this a little bit. So, but this gives you a real opportunity to give people to see a chance to see where you're going with your organization. Discuss your grand vision. I know that's a real blanket term, but you go with that where you gonna go with that. Just discuss your grand vision.
So my end desire and goal is to actually have a physical publishing house here in Jacksonville, Florida. I guess where that started is because starting out in writing, going into the publishing world, I saw that it was a very expensive or very hard bracket to break into. Like, you had to know somebody that knows somebody that knows some more people just to get, like, an agent to pay you some attention or even to get your book on the desk of a publisher. Or just, you had to have the money. And those were two things that I lacked, but it was always my desire to get published. So I did go the self-publishing route. But with that, it's still so much work because the marketing that goes into it, like some people, they can write one book and they're on the bestseller list from jump just because they had the money to back themselves or name to back themselves from jump. But for me, it'll probably be 20 books in before, realistically 20 books in before I hit New York's bestseller, which is one of my goals. But I have the heart for that, and I want to create a house where other people who are in my same situation or maybe have come from my community to give them that opportunity to become published authors. But then when their books are not just sitting on their family's coffee tables, but they're actually in bookstores and online, and they're actually like well-known writers. So that's definitely my desire. The vision for my company, it's to help everyday writers become published authors and help people to accomplish their dreams through the avenue of writing. So I definitely, but DA Writing House will be more than a writing house. I actually, in the near future, going to launch a nonprofit as well called Up Next to give students in disadvantaged neighborhoods that have artistic dreams the opportunity to start tapping into their dreams while they're in high school. So I'm actually in the process of developing the program right now, but that's another little tier that's going to be under DA Writing House because, like I said, when I was at home, there was no one that was feeding into my writing dreams. There was no one that paid attention to the fact that I even had a passion to write or that I wanted to be an author one day. So to give that dream to another student is definitely a desire of mine. So yeah, I think those are two like major visions I have for my business.
Yeah, it's real interesting. I'm seeing a lot of parallels. We've been working side by side for a couple of months, but there's a lot of the parallels with how you're envisioning things. That how I'm actually looking at it because Design Effects has had a nonprofit component for pretty much forever because I do have an education background. And it was the same kind of motif because you're always thinking about your journey in terms of what you did not have and not wanting to see someone else with that same talent, that same gift go unmet. Yeah. And then you just want to make sure that they have that opportunity. So that is a very, very cool. I don't know why, but I wasn't really surprised by that, but it was still something to hear, which actually falls with the motif of these discussions anyway, because I always come away from it with something that I didn't know about the person, even though I've been working with them for some period of time. I always I always end up doing a shameless plug for my business mentor with this particular question, because the term that it's centered around is something that he uses very often in his trainings. The question is, what do you bring to your craft, your organization, or realm of service to set you apart? And I allude to the concept of your DCP. What he called it was your defendable competitive position. And basically what that is that what is it that you do that sets you apart? Something you or your business brings to the table that sets yourself apart from all the other cats that's doing what it is you're doing, or doing something similar to what you're doing. So what is it?
For me, honestly, looking at everything I've gone through in the last 2 years, year and a half, is my age. A lot of people I run into who are in the publishing or writing world is well much older than me. A lot of my clients have been very much so older than me in age-wise.
So that makes you an old soul, right?
Yeah, so every time I meet them, they're like, you're how old?
See, just what I said. Yeah, that's what I get you.
It shocks of my age and my determination at this age to get to where, to be where I am, and to, keep pushing to where I want to go. And it also gives me, like, in some ways, I feel like, and I'm saying this as humbly as possible, I feel like it gives me an edge. Like,
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you need an edge. You in competition out here. Yes,
right.
Edge is good.
It gives me that extra creative outlook on things, to see things from a different perspective, because I am coming from a younger generation. Social media is of my advantage sometimes. But I just think, honestly, aside from all that, it's just my heart. There's a lot of people doing the same exact thing for me, but the reasons I'm doing it are so much different. A lot of people don't know, but at the age of 24 years ago, I did lose a son. So he's my purpose and passion to keep going, to make it. That's the meaning behind the name of my business, DA. His name was Demetrius Amir. So the DA Writing House is me leaving a legacy to the family that's coming up behind me. And that's what keeps me pushing every day, because I can't lie to y'all. There's some days I wanted to quit. I was like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. But I had to remember that I'm doing this it's more than me. And honestly, you guys know I'm a woman of God. So the souls that I'll reach by publishing my books, going to speaking engagements, it's all for God. So I feel like that's what sets me apart too. God is at the center of my business. So everything that I do is for Him. So yeah, I feel like that's it.
Yeah, and I'm looking, and I don't know if forgive me if I mention that I'm not supposed to. As you mentioned that, I looked at his name on your arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like those of you who are listening, you might not have seen that, but so we're actually talking, and as soon as she mentioned Demetrius, I looked at her arm, and I seen his name next to a heart on the inner part of her arm, and I was just like, and it was funny because I saw it right as she was saying that. So. It's very weird, y'all. Y'all just have to be here. Everything's just happening in a very godly like fashion. So, and we're actually doing a broadcast in Kingdom Promotions Radio studio, where a great champion, business champion of mine, Bishop Kirkpatrick at the Vision Center, is actually have hosted us for this particular broadcast of the GreenRoom, so shouts out to him as well. I'll be having him on the next couple of weeks. But this is cool. All of this is happening in a very godly like format. So I think this one was really happening the way God wants it to orchestrate itself. But I know one of the things that we normally are doing this for about maybe 30 minutes or so. I know this particular mogul has some things to get into, so we're going to actually cut this one short, but we're going to throw another question in there. Okay. So what do you want anyone listening and to take away from this brief time we had talking about your journey, your experiences? And this could be business, this could be personal, this could just be about the Lord, or just something you just wanted to promote. This is just basically your microphone sounding board. What do you want them to take away from this particular moment in time?
So first, I want to do a shameless plug.
Do what you do. Do what you do, sis. This your moment.
So this year, I will, and you guys are getting like exclusive information because it has not been released into the atmosphere yet. Only my team knows at FSTV about what's going on. But
so I think I do know. Ha.
Yes, you do know. I will be producing my first TV show this year. It's called Living in Truth. And that's kind of what I want to leave you guys with, too. I think my life became so much more free, so much more not burdensome. And there's so much to me that people don't know. But, like, in a nutshell, like, I tried to commit suicide 5 times. And remember, I told you guys at the beginning of this interview, at the beginning of 2018 was the last time I tried. And I made a commitment to God then that, okay, it's kind of evident you got something for me to be doing because you just won't let me go.
Right.
And I make a joke of that in light, but it's very so much serious and true that there was so much more that God must have for me because there's people that and I mean, I'm not to give any details, but these were real attempts. It's not like, I just did like I would actually try and nothing would happen kind of a thing. So it was very, I could see that God was keeping me here for a reason. So it made me to try to explore that concept of truth and what life really meant. And God doesn't aspire for us to have like burdensome lives or our lives always, it's not to say that our lives are going to be easy, everything's going to be cookies and cream, but we should be able to live it in peace and happy, joyful, with love. So that's what I want Living in Truth to showcase to the world, that in the midst of all the trials and tribulations and everything that you're going through, live your most truthful life. Be yourself, be you, and that's where you will find your peace and your happiness. So, and that ties into every aspect of my life, my business, my ministry with my, my personal ministry with Kenajawa, Leshawn. It ties into it all. So, I hope you guys are inspired today and you leave this going to find your truth.
See, look at God. I was talking about short timing. I said, we actually been talking pretty much around the same time that I talked to everyone else. And based on what time you had to get out of here and continue grinding, I think we're right on schedule. So that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a blessing.
Won't he do it?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed he will. Sis, thank you so much. I actually got a lot more of a glimpse into who you are and a lot more respect for this older woman in a young person's body. But again, I'm certainly more than thrilled to have an opportunity to get you in front of my audio for the world at large to hear. And since we've been speaking up on Boss Lady, Miss Michelle from Finally She, preferably when she see this, she'd be a little bit more motivated for me to drag her in the green room and get her to share her story. Cause,
it's your turn, Michelle.
Yeah, you up, Boss Lady. Yeah, I'm calling you out right now. But to those of you who are listening, thank you for taking a few moments of your time to sit with us. And this is Kiki and myself, John Carter, CEO of the Design Effects Company. And you have taken a few moments to peek in with us as we chat in the green room.